The old clock tower on Riverside University campus chimed 9:30, just like it had every morning for the past 60 years. But for the students hurrying across the quad with their heavy backpacks and steaming coffee cups, there was something else that marked the start of their day. Something that had become as reliable as that old clock, yet infinitely more beautiful. The first notes of piano music would drift across the campus like morning mist, gentle and welcoming. Students who had been rushing to make it to their 10 o'clock classes would suddenly slow their pace, their stressed expressions softening as the melody reached their ears. Some would even take a longer route just to walk past the corner of University Avenue where the music was coming from, there behind a weathered upright piano that had seen better days. Sat Luna Shun. Her fingers moved across the keys with the grace of someone who had been playing since childhood. But there was something more in her music than just technical skill. There was heart and hope and a kind of magic that you couldn't learn from any textbook. Luna had been claiming this corner as her own for 3 years now. 3 years of hot summers when the piano keys would burn her fingers if she played too long in direct sunlight. 3 years of brutal winters when she had to wear fingerless gloves and take breaks every few minutes to warm her hands. 3 years of spring rain that would force her to quickly cover the piano with a plastic tarp and wait for the weather to clear. The piano itself was a story worth telling. It was an old Yamaha upright, probably built sometime in the 1980s, with a white finish that had faded to cream and chipped in places to reveal the wood underneath. Luna had found it at Henderson's music store when old Mr. Henderson was closing down after 40 years in business. The piano had been marked for disposal, deemed too damaged to sell, but Luna saw potential where others saw problems. She had spent her last $100 to have it moved to this corner, convincing 2 college guys with a pickup truck to help her in exchange for pizza and gas money. The piano bench was even more of a survivor than the piano itself, a wobbly wooden seat that Luna had reinforced with duct tape and prayer. Sometimes she would joke to herself that the bench was held together by nothing but stubbornness and the sheer will to make music. But the condition of her equipment didn't matter to Luna, and it certainly didn't matter to the hundreds of students who had come to think of her corner as a bright spot in their daily routine. What mattered was the music and the way it seemed to create a bubble of peace in the middle of a busy college campus every morning. Luna would arrive at exactly 9:15. She had her routine down to a science. First, she would unlock the small storage shed behind the corner market where she kept her supplies overnight. The shop owner, Mrs. Patterson, had taken pity on Luna during her first winter and offered the space for free after watching her struggle to protect her piano from the elements. Luna would wheel out her piano bench, adjust the height, and arrange her music sheets in a neat pile, even though she rarely needed to look at them anymore. She knew hundreds of songs by heart, from classical pieces by Mozart and Chopin to contemporary hits that students would request. Her repertoire was as diverse as the student body itself. Next came the ritual of opening her guitar case, which she had repurposed as a tip jar. The case was lined with faded blue velvet and had stickers from various music festivals plastered around the edges. Luna would place a few dollar bills and some coins inside as seed money, not because she was trying to trick anyone, but because she had learned that people were more likely to contribute when they saw that others had already done so. The first song of the day was always special. Luna had developed this tradition without really planning it, but somehow it had become sacred to her. She would sit quietly for a moment, her hands resting on the keys, and think about what kind of energy the day needed. If it was exam week, she might start with something soft and calming like Debussy's Clair de Lune. If it was a beautiful spring morning, she might choose something more uplifting, like Billy Joel's Piano Man or an original arrangement of a popular song she had heard on the radio. The students had learned her patterns over the years. The early risers who grabbed coffee from the campus cafe knew that if they timed their walk just right, they would catch the beginning of Luna's daily concert. Some of them had even started planning their schedules around her music, taking the long way to class just to hear a song or two. There was something about live music that recorded songs just couldn't capture. When Luna played, you could see the emotion in her face. The way her shoulders would sway with a jazzy number or how she would close her eyes during a particularly beautiful passage. The music felt alive, breathing and changing with each performance. Even when she played the same song she had played 100 times before, students would often stop and listen for a few minutes between classes. Some would sit on the nearby benches that the city had installed years ago, pulling out their phones to record a quick video or simply closing their eyes and letting the music wash over them. Others would stand at a respectful distance, swaying slightly to the rhythm while they waited for their friends or checked their class schedules. The tip jar reflected the diversity of Luna's audience. Along with the usual dollar bills and quarters, there would be foreign coins from international students, gift cards to local coffee shops, and sometimes even handwritten notes of appreciation. One student had left a grocery store gift card with a note that said, "Thank you for making my breakup week bearable." Another had contributed a Target gift card with the message, "Your music helped me through finals. Buy yourself something nice." Luna had started keeping these notes in a small box in her apartment. On particularly difficult days when her fingers were stiff from the cold or when she was questioning whether she was wasting her time playing on the street, she would read through them and remember why she was doing this. The music had become a soundtrack to campus life in ways that Luna never anticipated. Study groups would form on the grass nearby, with her melodies providing ambient background music for their review sessions. Couples would have their first dates on the benches within earshot of her piano, and she had unknowingly provided the soundtrack for marriage proposals, birthday celebrations, and graduation parties. Some students had been listening to Luna's music for their entire college careers. She had watched them transform from nervous freshmen clutching campus maps to confident seniors who walked with purpose toward their futures. Her music had been there for their triumphs and their heartbreaks, their late-night study sessions, and their celebratory moments. Luna herself was a mystery to most of her audience. They knew her face and her repertoire, but few knew her story. They didn't know that she had been accepted to 3 different music conservatories but couldn't afford to attend any of them. They didn't know that she had dropped out of community college when her family faced financial hardship, or that playing on this corner was the only thing keeping her connected to her dreams of becoming a professional musician. What they did know was that her music made their days better. In a world full of stress and uncertainty, Luna's corner represented something constant and beautiful. Her music reminded them that there was still magic in the world, still moments of pure joy to be found in unexpected places. As the morning progressed and the 9:30 chime faded into memory, Luna would settle into her rhythm for the day. Her fingers would dance across the keys, creating melodies that would follow students into their classrooms, linger in their minds during lectures, and bring smiles to their faces hours later. She had no idea that this peaceful routine was about to be shattered, or that her music was about to become the center of a controversy that would change everything. Professor Williams had always prided himself on being a man of precision and control. His office in the business school was a testament to this philosophy, with perfectly aligned books on the shelves, a spotless desk with everything in its designated place, and charts on the wall showing quarterly performance metrics in neat, color-coded graphs. He believed that success in business, like success in life, came from eliminating distractions and maintaining focus on what truly mattered. This philosophy had served him well throughout his career. He had climbed from assistant professor to department head in just 8 years, earning recognition for his innovative teaching methods and his ability to secure major donations for the business school. His students respected him, his colleagues admired his dedication, and the university administration valued his results-driven approach to education. But lately, Professor Williams was feeling the pressure like never before. The business school was facing increased competition from other universities, and their national ranking had slipped from 15th to 22nd place over the past 2 years. The dean had made it clear that departments needed to step up their game or face budget cuts that could affect faculty positions and program funding. The pressure was especially intense because Professor Williams was in the middle of courting the university's most important potential donor in decades. The Mitchell Foundation had expressed interest in making a $25 million contribution to establish a new center for entrepreneurship and innovation. $25 million would not only secure the business school's future, but could potentially catapult them back into the top 10 rankings nationally. The foundation's representatives were thorough and demanding. They had scheduled a series of meetings throughout the month of April to evaluate the university's proposal, meet with faculty and students, and assess whether Riverside University was the right place for their investment. These meetings were taking place in the business school's main conference room, a glass-walled space on the third floor that overlooked University Avenue. The first sign of trouble came during the initial presentation meeting. Professor Williams was halfway through his carefully prepared PowerPoint about the proposed center when soft piano music began drifting through the windows. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a gentle melody that seemed to blend with the ambient sounds of campus life. But as the presentation continued, the music seemed to grow more prominent. Or perhaps Professor Williams was simply becoming more aware of it. Dr. Helen Mitchell, the foundation's lead representative, was a sharp woman in her 60s who had built her fortune in tech before transitioning to philanthropy. She was known for her attention to detail and her ability to spot weakness or uncertainty in any proposal. Professor Williams watched with growing anxiety as her eyes occasionally drifted toward the window during his presentation. Her expression unreadable, the real problem became apparent during the question and answer session. Dr. Mitchell was asking about student engagement metrics when the piano music outside shifted to what sounded like a jazzy interpretation of a popular song. The melody was beautiful and uplifting, but it was also distinctly audible in the conference room. Dr. Mitchell paused mid-sentence, tilted her head slightly, and then smiled. "What lovely music," she said, walking toward the window. "Is this part of your music program? It's quite charming." Professor Williams felt his stomach drop as he realized that the potential donor was now looking out the window instead of focusing on his carefully prepared charts showing projected student outcomes and industry partnerships. He managed to redirect the conversation back to business matters, but the damage was done. For the rest of the meeting, Professor Williams found himself hyper-aware of every note coming from the street below. What had once been pleasant background music now felt like a competitor for attention, an unwelcome variable in an equation he had worked months to perfect. The second meeting, scheduled for the following week, was even worse. This time, the foundation had brought their financial advisor, a meticulous man who wanted to review every detail of the proposed budget. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning, which Professor Williams now realized was right in the middle of the street. Musicians' peak performance time. As they discussed funding allocations for faculty salaries and research equipment, the piano music began with what sounded like a classical piece, probably Mozart or Beethoven. The melody was gentle and sophisticated, exactly the kind of thing that might appeal to educated philanthropists. But that was precisely the problem. Instead of focusing on the spreadsheets and financial projections, both foundation representatives seemed drawn to the music. "Excuse me," the financial advisor said, interrupting Professor Williams mid-sentence about operational costs. "Is that live music? It's remarkable. The acoustics in this room really carry it beautifully." He stood up and walked to the window, peering down at the street corner where Luna was playing. "Look at that, there's quite a crowd gathered. The students seem to really enjoy it." Professor Williams forced a smile and agreed that it was nice. But internally he was calculating how much of his presentation time was being lost to musical distractions. This was a $25 million decision, and instead of discussing the business school's competitive advantages, they were admiring a street performer. The third incident was the breaking point. Professor Williams had arranged for a showcase meeting where current business students would present their senior projects to the foundation representatives. These students had been preparing for weeks, and their presentations were designed to demonstrate the practical, real-world applications of their business education. Rebecca, one of his brightest students, was presenting her capstone project on sustainable supply chain management when the street piano began playing again. This time, it was an original composition that Luna had been working on, a complex piece that wove together classical techniques with contemporary harmonies. The music was undeniably beautiful, but it was also compelling in a way that made it difficult to ignore. Rebecca soldiered on with her presentation, but Professor Williams could see that she was struggling to maintain the audience's attention. Dr. Mitchell and her colleagues kept glancing toward the window, and at one point, the financial advisor actually asked Rebecca to pause so they could listen to a particularly beautiful passage in the music. "I'm sorry," Dr. Mitchell said to Rebecca, "but that music is absolutely captivating. Do you know who the performer is?" "They're quite talented." Rebecca, who had actually been a regular listener of Luna's performances, lit up and began describing how the music had become a beloved part of campus culture. For the next 10 minutes, the business presentation turned into a discussion about campus arts and the positive impact of street performance on student well-being. Professor Williams watched his carefully orchestrated showcase spiral out of control. These students were supposed to be demonstrating their business acumen and professional presentation skills, not chatting about street musicians. When the meeting finally ended, he felt like his months of preparation had been derailed by something completely beyond his control. That evening, Professor Williams sat in his office after hours, staring out the window at the now quiet corner, where the musician performed. He thought about all the work he had put into securing this donation, all the late nights and weekend meetings, all the detailed proposals and financial projections. He thought about his faculty colleagues who were counting on this funding to secure their positions and advance their research. He thought about the students who would benefit from the new entrepreneurship center and the boost it would give to the business school's reputation. The musician was talented, he had to admit that. But talent didn't pay the bills or secure university rankings. The foundation representatives seemed charmed by the music, but Professor Williams worried that charm wasn't the same thing as confidence in the business school's capabilities. He needed these meetings to project professionalism, focus, and academic excellence. Instead, they were being characterized by whimsical distractions and romantic notions about campus culture. Professor Williams began researching university policies about street performance and noise regulations. He discovered that there were indeed rules about unauthorized commercial activities on campus property, though the language was somewhat ambiguous about public sidewalks adjacent to university grounds. He also found contact information for other faculty members who might share his concerns about maintaining appropriate academic environments over the next few days. Professor Williams reached out to colleagues in departments that also held important meetings in buildings facing University Avenue. Dr. Patricia Lopez from the psychology department mentioned that she had noticed the music during her thesis defense meetings. Professor David Chun from the engineering school said that visiting industry representatives had sometimes commented on the artistic atmosphere during recruitment presentations. None of his colleagues seemed as concerned as Professor Williams, but they were willing to acknowledge that the music could potentially be distracting during important academic functions. Tuesday morning started like any other day for Luna. She woke up in her small studio apartment at 7:30, made herself a cup of coffee with the cheap instant powder she bought in bulk, and spent a few minutes reviewing the mental playlist she had planned for the day. The weather forecast called for sunny skies and mild temperatures, perfect conditions for playing outside. She had been looking forward to trying out a new arrangement of The Way You Look Tonight that she had been working on all weekend. Luna's morning routine was sacred to her. After her coffee, she would do 20 minutes of finger exercises on the small electric keyboard she kept in her apartment. The keyboard was ancient and some of the keys stuck, but it served its purpose of keeping her fingers limber and her muscle memory sharp. She would practice scales, arpeggios, and chord progressions, the same exercises her piano teacher had drilled into her. When she was 12 years old, next came the ritual of choosing her outfit for the day. Luna had learned through experience that street performing required a delicate balance. She needed to look professional enough to be taken seriously as a musician, but not so formal that she seemed out of place on a street corner. Today she chose dark jeans, a light blue sweater, and comfortable flat shoes that would let her work the piano pedals effectively. By 9:15, Luna was wheeling her piano bench out of Mrs. Patterson's storage shed and arranging her setup for the day. The morning was indeed beautiful, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of blooming flowers from the campus gardens. Early students were already walking past, some offering friendly waves or calling out song requests for later in the day. Luna placed her usual seed money in the guitar case and arranged her sheet music, though today she was planning to play mostly from memory. She had been working on that jazz arrangement all weekend, and she was excited to see how it would sound on her old piano compared to the electric keyboard in her apartment. The song required some complex chord progressions that would really showcase the rich, warm tone of the acoustic piano. At exactly 9:30, Luna began her first song of the day. She started with something gentle and welcoming, a simple melody that would ease people into the morning without being too jarring. Students walking to their 10 o'clock classes began to slow down as they always did, drawn by the familiar sound that had become such a reliable part of their daily routine. About 20 minutes into her performance, Luna noticed a man in a dark suit walking purposefully across the campus quad in her direction. There was something about his stride and his expression that seemed different from the usual foot traffic. Most people who approached her corner either looked relaxed and happy to hear the music, or they were clearly in a hurry to get somewhere else. This man looked neither relaxed nor hurried. He looked determined. Luna continued playing, but she found herself glancing up more frequently than usual. The man was definitely heading toward her, and as he got closer she could see that he was older, probably in his 50s, with graying hair and a serious expression. He was carrying what looked like an official folder or envelope, and Luna felt a knot beginning to form in her stomach. When the man reached her corner, Luna was in the middle of a gentle rendition of Moon River. She had chosen the song because it was one of her favorites, a melody that always made her feel peaceful and hopeful. But as the man stood there waiting for her to finish, the note suddenly felt heavy and uncertain under her fingers. "Excuse me," the man said as soon as Luna reached the end of the song. His voice was polite but firm, the kind of tone that suggested this was official business rather than a casual conversation. "I need to speak with you for a moment." Luna lifted her hands from the keys and looked up at him. "Of course," she said, though her heart was starting to beat faster. "Is everything okay?" A small crowd of students had gathered nearby, as they often did during her morning performances, and Luna was acutely aware that whatever was about to happen would have an audience. The man introduced himself as Dean Richards from the university administration. The title alone was enough to make Luna feel like she was in trouble, though she couldn't imagine what she might have done wrong. She had always been careful to keep her performance area clean. She never blocked pedestrian traffic, and she tried to keep her volume at a level that wouldn't disturb anyone. "I'm afraid I have some serious concerns about your activities here," Dean Richards continued, pulling a formal-looking document from his folder. "You're performing on university property without proper authorization, which constitutes a violation of our campus policies regarding commercial activities." Luna felt her face flush with embarrassment and confusion. The students who had been listening to her music were now clearly paying attention to the conversation, as she could see them exchanging glances and whispering to each other. This was exactly the kind of attention Luna had always tried to avoid. She wanted people to notice her music, not her personal problems. "I'm sorry, I had no idea I needed special permission," Luna said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been playing here for 3 years, and no one has ever said anything before. I thought since I was on the public sidewalk it would be okay." She gestured toward the street, trying to emphasize that she had always been careful to position herself on what she believed was city property rather than university grounds. Dean Richards shook his head firmly. "The university's jurisdiction extends beyond the official campus boundaries. This entire area falls under our authority for the purposes of regulating commercial activities." He handed Luna the official notice he had prepared. "You're conducting unauthorized business operations that require proper permits and administrative approval." Luna took the document with shaking hands. The language was full of official-sounding terms and legal references that made her head spin. Words like commercial enterprise, permit violations, and regulatory compliance seemed designed to make her feel small and powerless. She tried to read through it quickly, but the formal language was intimidating and confusing. "But I'm not really running a business," Luna protested. "I'm just playing music. People sometimes give me tips, but I'm not charging admission or selling anything. I just love to play, and it helps me pay for groceries and things like that." She could hear the desperation creeping into her own voice, and she hated how weak and pleading she sounded. Dean Richards remained unmoved by her explanation. "Intent is irrelevant," he said. "You're accepting monetary compensation for a performance service on university property. That constitutes commercial activity regardless of your personal motivations." His tone suggested that he had dealt with similar situations before and that Luna's circumstances were not particularly unique or compelling. The crowd of students had grown larger, and Luna could see that some of them were taking out their phones, probably to record what was happening. The thought of her humiliation being captured on video made her feel sick to her stomach. This corner had been her safe space, her creative outlet, her connection to the dreams she was afraid she might never achieve. Now it felt like a spotlight illuminating her failures and vulnerabilities. "How long do I have?" Luna asked quietly, still staring at the official notice in her hands. The words were starting to blur as tears formed in her eyes, but she was determined not to cry in front of all these people. "You have until the end of this week to cease all musical activities in this area," Dean Richards replied. "If you continue performing after Friday, I'll have to involve campus security." Continued violations could result in a permanent ban from all university property, which would include the library, student center, and other public facilities that you might normally have access to. The threat hit Luna like a physical blow. The university library was one of her favorite places in town, a quiet sanctuary where she could read music theory books and sometimes use the practice rooms when they weren't occupied by students. The student center had affordable food and free Wi-Fi that she relied on when her internet home was spotty. Being banned from campus would cut her off from resources she depended on in places that had become important parts of her routine. "I understand," Luna said, though her voice was barely above a whisper. She folded the notice carefully and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Feeling like she was putting away her dreams along with the paper, Dean Richards nodded curtly and turned to walk away, his business completed. He didn't look back or acknowledge the crowd of students who were watching him leave with expressions ranging from confusion to anger. To him, this had been a simple administrative matter, a rule violation that needed to be corrected. He had no idea that he had just shattered something precious and irreplaceable. Luna sat at her piano bench for several long minutes after Dean Richards disappeared across the quad, unsure what to do next. The students who had gathered to listen were still there, some of them approaching her with expressions of concern and support. A few offered words of encouragement or asked if there was anything they could do to help, but Luna felt too overwhelmed to respond coherently. Finally, she began the painful process of packing up her equipment. Her fingers felt numb as she closed the piano lid and folded her sheet music. The guitar case that had collected tips and kind notes now felt impossibly heavy. The silence on University Avenue was deafening. For 3 years, students had become accustomed to the gentle piano melodies that marked the rhythm of their daily lives, and now that the music was gone, its absence felt like a missing heartbeat. Wednesday morning came and went without the familiar 9:30 musical greeting, and by Thursday, it was clear that something fundamental had changed on campus. Ashley was the first to notice something was wrong. She was a junior studying psychology who had developed a ritual around Luna's morning performances. Every day she would grab her coffee from the campus cafe and take the long route to her 10 o'clock statistics class, timing her walk perfectly, to catch the first few songs of Luna's daily concert. The music had become her transition from the grogginess of early morning to the focused energy she needed for her challenging coursework. On Wednesday morning, Ashley stood at the corner holding her coffee and waiting for music that never came. She saw the empty space where Luna's piano had always been, and a cold feeling settled in her stomach. At first, she thought maybe Luna was sick or had some kind of emergency. But when Thursday came and the corner remained silent, Ashley knew something serious had happened. Ashley wasn't the only one who noticed. By Thursday afternoon, students across campus were asking each other the same question: "Where's the piano lady?" The question spread through dormitories, study groups, and cafeteria conversations. Students who had never spoken to each other before found themselves bonding over their shared concern about Luna's disappearance. Tyler, a sophomore from Minnesota, had been one of Luna's most dedicated listeners. As an international student far from home, he had often felt lonely and overwhelmed during his first year at Riverside University. Luna's music had provided a daily dose of comfort and familiarity, reminding him of the piano lessons his grandmother had given him as a child. When he discovered that Luna was no longer playing, he felt like he had lost a friend. Tyler decided to take action. He created a simple post on the university's student Facebook page. "Does anyone know what happened to the woman who plays piano on University Avenue? Her music was a bright spot in my day, and I'm worried something might be wrong." Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments from other students expressing the same concern. That's when the story began to emerge. Several students had witnessed Luna's confrontation with Dean Richards on Tuesday morning. Some had even recorded parts of the encounter on their phones, though the audio quality wasn't great and the video was shaky. As these witnesses shared their accounts, the full picture of what had happened began to take shape. Rebecca, a senior who had been listening to Luna's music for almost 4 years, was furious when she learned the truth. She had been planning to study abroad next semester, but Luna's morning concerts had been one of the things she was going to miss most about Riverside University. The thought that some administrator had simply decided to shut down this beautiful tradition made her blood boil. Rebecca shared Tyler's post with her own commentary. "This is absolutely ridiculous. The university administration has banned the most beloved musician on campus because of some bureaucratic nonsense. Luna's music brought joy to thousands of students every day, and now it's gone because someone decided rules were more important than happiness," the post exploded. Within 24 hours, it had been shared hundreds of times and had accumulated over 1,000 comments. Students began sharing their own stories about what Luna's music had meant to them. The comments section became a digital memorial to the daily concerts that had been such an important part of campus life. Jennifer, a graduate student working on her dissertation, wrote about how Luna's music had provided the perfect background soundtrack for her outdoor study sessions. "I used to bring my laptop and sit on the bench near her piano while I worked on my research. The music helped me focus and made even the most stressful writing sessions feel manageable. Campus feels empty without her." Marcus, a freshman who was struggling with homesickness, shared how Luna's music had helped him through his most difficult weeks. "I was seriously considering transferring back home because I felt so lost and alone here. But every morning I would hear this beautiful piano music, and it reminded me that there was still beauty and kindness in the world. Luna probably doesn't even know my name, but her music literally kept me here." The stories kept coming. Students wrote about how Luna's performances had been the soundtrack to their first dates, their late-night study sessions, their celebratory moments after difficult exams. International students talked about how the music had made them feel welcome in a new country. Graduating seniors shared memories of how Luna's melodies had marked the seasons of their college experience. Dr. Martinez, a young professor in the English department, saw the Facebook posts and decided to add her voice to the conversation. She had often noticed her students seemed more relaxed and creative during her Tuesday and Thursday morning classes, which were held in a building near University Avenue. Now she realized that Luna's music had been unconsciously priming her students for better learning experiences. "As faculty, we talk constantly about creating engaging learning environments," Dr. Martinez wrote. "Luna was providing exactly that kind of environment for free, and the administration has thoughtlessly destroyed it. This decision shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes a university community thrive." The Facebook post about Luna had grown into something much larger than anyone had anticipated. Students began creating their own posts, sharing photos and videos they had taken of Luna's performances over the years. Someone started a hashtag, "Save Our Campus Music." Local news outlets began picking up the story when the hashtag started trending. Citywood, Channel 7 News sent a reporter to campus on Friday afternoon to interview students about the controversy. The reporter, a young woman named Kelly who had graduated from Riverside University just 3 years earlier, remembered Luna's music from her own student days. She approached the story with genuine curiosity rather than treating it as just another campus controversy. The interviews revealed the depth of feeling students had about Luna's music. One after another, students spoke passionately about how the daily concerts had enriched their college experience. They used words like magical, healing, and essential to describe something the administration had dismissed as a minor rule violation. She wasn't just playing music, explained David, a music therapy major who had often stopped to listen between classes. She was creating community. People would meet each other at her concerts. Couples would have their first conversations there. Study groups would form because people were all drawn to the same beautiful space. The university has no idea what they've destroyed. The news story aired on Friday evening and was immediately shared across social media platforms. By Saturday morning, the story had been picked up by regional news outlets, and by Sunday, it was being discussed on national education blogs and social media accounts dedicated to campus life. Parents began calling the university to express their concerns. Many had visited campus for Parents' Weekend or graduation ceremonies and remembered Luna's music as a highlight of their campus tours. Alumni shared memories of the piano performances they had enjoyed during their student years, expressing dismay that this tradition had been eliminated. The university's social media accounts were flooded with comments demanding Luna's return. The tone of these comments ranged from disappointed to angry, with many people expressing frustration about the administration's priorities. How can you claim to value arts education while silencing the most beloved artist on campus? Wrote one alumnus who had donated regularly to the university fund. Local coffee shops and restaurants near campus began displaying signs supporting Luna. Mrs. Patterson, who owned the corner market where Luna stored her equipment, put up a poster in her window that read, "We miss our piano music too." Other local business owners, who had noticed that Luna's performances often drew customers to the area, expressed concern about the economic impact of her absence. The petition that Tyler had started online grew to over 5,000 signatures by the end of the week. The comment section of the petition became a forum where people shared increasingly detailed stories about Luna's impact on their lives. Parents wrote about how their children had called home excited about the campus pianist. Visitors to the university described how the music had made their campus tours more memorable and welcoming, but perhaps the most powerful response came from current students who organized informal gatherings at Luna's former corner. Without any official organization or leadership, students began meeting there at 9:30 each morning, the time when Luna's concerts had always begun. They would stand in silence for a few minutes, sometimes humming the melodies they remembered, creating a kind of musical memorial that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. These silent gatherings grew larger each day, drawing students who had never been regular listeners but who felt compelled to show support for something they now realized had been precious. The sight of dozens of students standing quietly at the empty corner became a powerful symbol of what the campus community had lost. By the following Monday, exactly 1 week after Luna's final performance, Rachel Martinez had been watching the whole Luna situation unfold with a mixture of anger and determination that surprised even her. As student body president, she was used to dealing with campus controversies, but this felt different. This felt personal. For 4 years, Luna's music had been the soundtrack to Rachel's college experience, and now, just 3 weeks before graduation, that beautiful tradition had been ripped away by what seemed like nothing more than bureaucratic pettiness. Rachel was not someone who accepted defeat easily. She had fought her way to the student body presidency by being both strategic and passionate, and she had spent her entire senior year working to make positive changes on campus. The idea that some administrator could simply decide to eliminate something so beloved without any input from the student community made her furious in a way that went beyond normal political disagreements on the Friday evening after the news story aired. Rachel was sitting in her apartment with her laptop, scrolling through the hundreds of comments and messages that students had posted about Luna. Each story made her more convinced that the administration had made a serious mistake. These weren't just casual complaints about a minor inconvenience. These were heartfelt testimonials about how Luna's music had genuinely improved people's lives and created a sense of community that was rare and precious. Rachel had always been good at seeing opportunities where others saw problems. And as she read through the student responses, an idea began forming in her mind. It was ambitious and risky, but it might be exactly what was needed to not only bring Luna back, but to make a statement about what the university community really valued. The first piece of the puzzle came when Rachel remembered that graduation was still missing official music for the processional. Every year, the ceremony used recorded classical music played through speakers, but there was nothing in the university handbook that required it to be recorded music. The graduation committee had been discussing hiring live musicians for years, but budget constraints had always prevented it from happening. Rachel pulled up the graduation planning documents on her student government laptop and began researching the requirements for ceremony music. She discovered that the decision about musical performances was made jointly by the graduation committee and the board of trustees, with input from student government. As student body president, Rachel had a voice in these decisions, and she realized that she might have more power than she had initially thought, but just bringing Luna back for one performance wouldn't be enough. Rachel wanted to do something that would address the larger injustice of what had happened to Luna over the years. As she dug deeper into Luna's story, Rachel learned something that made the situation even more heartbreaking and gave her plan a deeper purpose. Through her connections in the music department, Rachel discovered that Luna had originally been accepted to the Harmony Conservatory, one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. The acceptance letter was still valid, but Luna had never been able to afford the tuition. The conservatory had held her spot for 3 years, hoping she would find a way to enroll, but this would be the final year they could wait. If Luna didn't register by fall, she would lose her chance forever. Rachel felt a chill when she learned this information. Here was someone with extraordinary talent who had been accepted to a top-tier music program, and she was playing on street corners because she couldn't afford to pursue her education. Meanwhile, the university was spending thousands of dollars on recorded music for graduation when they could be supporting a real artist who had given so much to the campus community. The injustice of it all made Rachel even more determined to act. She began sketching out a plan that was more ambitious than anything she had attempted. During her time as student body president, she wanted to not only get Luna invited to play at graduation, but to surprise her with enough scholarship money to finally attend the conservatory she had dreamed of for years. Rachel knew that organizing such a plan would require careful coordination and absolute secrecy. If Dean Richards or other administrators found out what she was planning, they might try to block it or create additional obstacles. She also knew that pulling together a significant scholarship fund would require the kind of grassroots organizing that could only happen if students felt personally invested in the outcome. The first step was reaching out to other student leaders who had the connections and credibility to help make the plan work. Rachel started with Alex Chun, the president of the Music Students Association, who had been one of the most vocal supporters of Luna during the recent controversy. Alex immediately understood the vision and agreed to help coordinate outreach to music students and faculty. Next, Rachel contacted Isabella Rodriguez, who ran the Campus Arts Council and had connections with local businesses and community organizations that supported the arts. Isabella was thrilled by the idea and offered to help reach out to potential donors outside the university community. Rachel also brought in David Thompson, the student representative to the Board of Trustees, who would be crucial for getting the graduation performance approved. David had been watching the Luna controversy with interest and was eager to find a way for student government to take meaningful action on an issue that clearly mattered to the entire campus. The team spent the weekend developing a detailed strategy. They would work on 2 tracks simultaneously, getting Luna approved as the official graduation musician and quietly organizing a fundraising campaign to raise money for her conservatory tuition. The graduation approval would need to go through official channels, but the fundraising could happen grassroots style, through social media and word of mouth. The research phase revealed both good news and challenges. The good news was that Luna needed approximately $15,000 to attend Harmony Conservatory for 1 year, including tuition and living expenses. While that was a significant amount of money, it was achievable if they could mobilize the entire campus community that had been so vocal in their support. The challenge was timing. Graduation was only 3 weeks away, which meant they had very little time to organize both the official approval process and the fundraising campaign. They would need to move quickly and efficiently, with multiple teams working on different aspects of the plan simultaneously. Rachel assigned specific roles to each team member. Alex would handle outreach to music students and faculty, who would likely be the most enthusiastic supporters of both the graduation performance and the scholarship fund. Isabella would work on community outreach and coordinate with local businesses that had expressed support for Luna during the recent controversy. David would begin the delicate process of approaching the board of trustees about hiring Luna for graduation. This would require careful political maneuvering, since the board would want to avoid any appearance of caving to student pressure. Even though bringing Luna back would clearly be a popular decision, Rachel took on the most challenging role: coordinating the scholarship fundraising while keeping the entire operation secret from both Luna and the administration. She would need to mobilize the student body that had been so vocal on social media and convert their online support into actual financial contributions. The fundraising strategy was built around the emotional connections that students had already expressed about Luna's music. Rather than asking for large donations, they would focus on small contributions from many people, emphasizing that even $5 or $10 could make a difference when multiplied across thousands of supporters. Rachel created a private fundraising page with a simple message: "Help Luna achieve her dream of attending music conservatory. She gave our campus 4 years of beautiful music for free. Now it's time for us to give back." The page included some of the most moving testimonials that students had shared during the recent controversy, along with information about Luna's conservatory acceptance and the opportunity that would be lost forever if she couldn't enroll by fall. The response exceeded every expectation. Within the first day, they had raised over $3,000 from student contributions alone. Messages poured in from current students, recent graduates, and even parents who had heard about the campaign from their children. The comments section became another forum for people to share stories about how Luna's music had touched their lives. Local businesses that had supported Luna during the controversy also stepped up with contributions. The coffee shops near campus donated their daily tips for a week. Mrs. Patterson from the corner market made a personal contribution and organized a fundraising drive among other local business owners. Even faculty members began contributing once word spread through unofficial channels. Dr. Martinez from the English department, who had written about Luna's positive impact on her students, made a significant donation and encouraged her colleagues to do the same. The music department faculty collectively contributed enough money to cover Luna's textbooks for an entire semester. By the end of the first week, the scholarship fund had grown to over $8,000, and contributions were still coming. And steadily, Rachel realized that they might actually be able to raise enough money to cover not just 1 year at the conservatory, but potentially Luna's entire degree program. The Tuesday board meeting felt like the most important 45 minutes of Rachel's college career. She sat in the small waiting area outside the boardroom, reviewing her notes one final time while trying to calm her racing heart. Through the heavy wooden doors, she could hear the muffled voices of trustees discussing budget allocations and academic policies. Soon, they would be voting on whether to approve her proposal to hire Luna as the official graduation musician. David Thompson, the student representative, had spent the previous week having individual conversations with board members to gauge their support for the idea. The responses had been cautiously positive, but Rachel knew that board meetings could be unpredictable. A single trustee with strong objections could derail the entire plan, and Dean Richards would almost certainly oppose the proposal if he had advance warning about it. The strategy was to present Luna's hiring as a practical solution to multiple problems rather than as a response to student pressure. Rachel had prepared a presentation that emphasized the artistic benefits of live music at graduation, the positive publicity it would generate for the university, and the cost savings compared to hiring a professional ensemble from outside the community. When David finally emerged from the boardroom to invite Rachel inside, his slight smile told her that the preliminary discussions had gone well. The board members looked tired but attentive as Rachel set up her laptop and began her presentation. She had practiced this speech dozens of times, but standing in front of the people who would ultimately decide Luna's fate made every word feel crucial. "Distinguished board members," Rachel began, "I'm here to propose an enhancement to our graduation ceremony that would showcase our university's commitment to supporting local artistic talent while creating a more memorable experience for graduates and their families." Rachel carefully avoided mentioning Luna by name in her opening remarks, instead focusing on the general benefits of live music at academic ceremonies. She showed examples from other universities that had successfully incorporated live performances into their graduations, emphasizing the positive media coverage and alumni satisfaction that typically resulted only after establishing the educational and public relations benefits. Did Rachel reveal her specific proposal? "I would like to recommend that we hire Luna Chun, a talented local pianist, who has been performing in our campus area for several years. Miss Chun was accepted to the prestigious Harmony Conservatory and has demonstrated both the technical skill and artistic sensitivity that would make our graduation ceremony truly special." The board members asked thoughtful questions about logistics, cost, and artistic qualifications. Rachel had anticipated most of these concerns and had prepared detailed answers about sound equipment, repertoire selection, and Luna's musical background. The fact that Luna's performances were already familiar to many students and faculty actually worked in her favor, since board members could verify her abilities through first-hand accounts. Dr. Patricia Williams, the board chair, seemed particularly intrigued by the proposal. "This sounds like an interesting opportunity," she said. "However, I want to ensure that we're making this decision based on artistic merit rather than as a response to recent campus controversies." Rachel had expected this concern and was ready with her response. "Absolutely, Miss Chun's qualifications speak for themselves. Her acceptance to Harmony Conservatory demonstrates that professional educators recognize her talent. The fact that our campus community is already familiar with her work simply means that we can make this decision with confidence, rather than taking a risk on an unknown performer." The discussion continued for another 20 minutes, with board members weighing various practical and artistic considerations. Rachel answered every question as thoroughly as possible while trying to read the mood of the room. Some trustees seemed enthusiastic about the idea, while others appeared more cautious about making such a significant change to graduation traditions. So close to the ceremony date, finally, Dr. Williams called for a vote. "All in favor of hiring Luna Chun as the official musician for this year's graduation ceremony?" 7 hands went up around the table. "Opposed?" Only one trustee raised his hand, and he looked somewhat reluctant even as he did so. "The motion passes. Ms. Martinez, please work with our events coordinator to finalize the arrangements." Rachel felt a surge of relief and excitement that she worked hard to keep from showing on her face. The first part of their plan had succeeded, but the hardest work was still ahead. Now they needed to contact Luna, finalize the scholarship fundraising, and coordinate all the details for what they hoped would be an unforgettable graduation surprise. The board had agreed to keep Luna's hiring confidential until the day of the ceremony, which worked perfectly with Rachel's larger plan. They wanted the live music to be a pleasant surprise for graduates and families, not something that would generate advance publicity or controversy. This secrecy would also allow Rachel's team to present the scholarship fund as a complete surprise that Luna would have no opportunity to refuse or feel awkward about accepting, Immediately after the board meeting, Rachel texted her team with a simple message: "It's official. Time for Phase 2." Within an hour, they were all gathered in the student government office, mapping out the final details of their operation. The scholarship fund had continued growing throughout the week of board meetings and had reached an incredible $18,000. Contributions were still coming in from students, faculty, staff, local businesses, and even some alumni who had heard about the campaign through social media. The amount was enough to cover not just Luna's first year at the conservatory, but potentially her entire degree program if she remained careful with expenses. Alex Jun had been coordinating with the music department to ensure that Luna's graduation performance would be technically flawless. The university's sound technicians would provide professional audio equipment, and the music faculty had offered to help Luna prepare any pieces she might not be familiar with. Professor Henderson, who taught piano in the music department, had even volunteered to provide a practice space if Luna needed time to rehearse on a high-quality instrument. Isabella Rodriguez had been working with local media contacts to ensure that Luna's graduation performance would receive positive coverage that could help launch her music career. Several journalists who had covered the original controversy about her removal were interested in following up with the story of her return, and a local classical music radio station wanted to interview Luna after the ceremony. The most delicate part of the operation was actually contacting Luna to invite her to play at graduation. Rachel wanted to extend the invitation personally, but she also needed to be careful not to reveal the scholarship surprise or let Luna know how extensively the student community had been working behind the scenes to make this happen. Rachel decided to approach Luna through Mrs. Patterson at the corner market, who had been storing Luna's piano and had stayed in touch with her since the forced removal from campus. Mrs. Patterson was delighted to help facilitate the reunion and agreed to invite Luna to the store on Thursday afternoon when Rachel could be there to extend the graduation invitation. The meeting was emotional from the moment Luna walked into the small office behind Mrs. Patterson's store. Rachel could see that the past few weeks had been difficult for Luna, who looked tired and a bit defeated in a way that made Rachel's heart ache. The vibrant, confident musician who had filled the campus with joy every morning seemed smaller and more uncertain than Rachel remembered. "Luna, I'm Rachel Martinez, the student body president," Rachel began gently. "First, I want to apologize on behalf of the entire student community for what happened to you. The way you were treated was completely unfair, and it doesn't represent what our campus is really about." Luna's eyes filled with tears almost immediately. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. "I've been wondering if maybe I was wrong to think I belonged there. When that dean told me I was violating rules, I started questioning everything about what I was doing." Rachel felt her own eyes getting watery as she listened to Luna's doubts. "You absolutely belong there. Your music was the best part of campus life for thousands of students. That's actually why I'm here today." Rachel explained about the board's decision to hire live music for graduation and their unanimous choice to offer the position to Luna. She watched Luna's face transform from confusion to disbelief to cautious hope as she realized what was being offered. "You want me to play at graduation?" Luna asked. "In front of everyone? Officially?" "Not just officially," Rachel said with a smile. "We want you to be the centerpiece of the ceremony. Your music will welcome the graduates and their families, and you'll be recognized as an important part of what makes our university community special." Luna agreed immediately, though she seemed almost afraid to believe that this opportunity was real. Rachel helped her understand the logistics and timeline, explaining that the ceremony was just over a week away and that the music department would provide any support she needed to prepare. As they discussed repertoire and technical details, Rachel had to work hard to contain her excitement about the scholarship surprise that would be revealed during the ceremony. Graduation morning dawned bright and clear, with the kind of perfect spring weather that made everything feel possible. Luna woke up in her small apartment at 5:30, hours before she needed to be at the university, but sleep had been impossible. Her hands were trembling slightly as she made her coffee, not from nerves about performing, but from the overwhelming reality that she was about to play piano for thousands of people at the very place where she had been told she didn't belong. She had spent the previous evening practicing on the beautiful grand piano in the university's concert hall, getting familiar with its touch and tone. The instrument was magnificent, a far cry from her weathered street-corner piano, but Luna had learned to adapt to different instruments over the years. What mattered most was that she would finally be able to share her music in a setting where it was wanted and welcomed. Dean Richards had arrived at his office early that morning, planning to review the final graduation details and ensure that everything ran smoothly. The ceremony was one of the most important events of the academic year, with hundreds of families traveling from across the country to celebrate their graduates. Everything needed to be perfect, and Dean Richards prided himself on managing flawless events. He was reviewing the program schedule when his assistant knocked on his door with a concerned expression. "Dean Richards, I just received the final program from the printing office, and there's something unusual in the music section. It says we have a live pianist performing today instead of the usual recorded music." Dean Richards felt his stomach drop as he grabbed the program and scanned the details. There, clearly printed in black and white, was the information that Luna Chun would be providing live piano music for the ceremony. His face flushed red as he realized that somehow the woman he had banned from campus property was now scheduled to perform at the university's most prestigious annual event. Dean Richards immediately called the event's coordinator, demanding an explanation for what he assumed was a serious mistake. The coordinator, who had been briefed by the Board of Trustees to expect this call, calmly explained that Ms. Chun had been hired by direct vote of the board and that all arrangements had been finalized. "This is absolutely unacceptable, Dean," Richards said, his voice rising. "I specifically banned this woman from university property for violating campus policies. How is it possible that she's now being featured at our graduation ceremony?" The event's coordinator remained professional but firm. "Dean Richards, I understand your concerns, but Ms. Chun was hired through proper channels with full board approval. The trustees were very enthusiastic about having live music for graduation, and they specifically requested that we not make any changes to these arrangements." Dean Richards hung up the phone and immediately tried calling board chair Dr. Williams, but she was already en route to the ceremony and her phone went straight to voicemail. He considered trying to have campus security remove Luna when she arrived, but he knew that creating a scene at graduation would be far worse for his career than allowing the performance to proceed. Meanwhile, Luna was getting ready with a level of care and attention that the occasion deserved. She had bought a new black dress for the ceremony, simple but elegant, and she had practiced until her fingers could play every piece flawlessly. The music department had helped her select a repertoire that would be both beautiful and appropriate for the formal occasion. Luna arrived at the graduation venue 3 hours before the ceremony began, wanting plenty of time to set up and practice on the actual performance piano. The outdoor amphitheater was already bustling with activity as staff arranged chairs, tested sound equipment, and decorated the stage with flowers and university banners. When Luna sat down at the grand piano for her sound check, something magical happened. The acoustics of the amphitheater were perfect for piano music, carrying her notes clearly across the entire space without overwhelming the natural outdoor ambiance. She played through her opening piece, a gentle, classical arrangement that would welcome families as they found their seats, and several staff members stopped their work to listen. Rachel Martinez was at the venue even earlier than Luna, coordinating the final details of the scholarship surprise. She had arranged for a special microphone to be available for the presentation, and she had briefed the graduation photographer to make sure the moment would be captured perfectly. The custom scholarship certificate was hidden in a folder beneath the stage, along with a printed check representing the final fundraising total of $22,000. As families began arriving and filling the amphitheater, Luna started her prelude music. Her fingers moved across the keys with confidence and grace, creating melodies that seemed to transform the graduation ceremony into something more meaningful than just an academic requirement. Parents who had been stressed about finding parking and getting good seats found themselves relaxing as the music washed over them. Students in their caps and gowns gathered in the staging area behind the amphitheater, many of them recognizing Luna's music immediately. Word spread quickly through the group that their beloved campus pianist was performing at their graduation, and the excitement was infectious. Some students were taking videos to send to friends and family who had followed the story of Luna's removal and return. Dean Richards arrived at the ceremony looking uncomfortable and defeated. He could see that Luna's performance was already being well received by families and students, and he knew that any attempt to intervene now would only draw negative attention to his role in the original controversy. He took his seat on the stage with the other administrators, trying to maintain his professional composure while internally seething about being outmaneuvered by student activists and the board of trustees. As the processional began, Luna shifted to more formal classical pieces that provided the perfect soundtrack for the graduates' entrance. Watching hundreds of students in their academic regalia walking proudly toward their futures, accompanied by music that had been such an important part of their campus experience, felt like a dream come true for Luna. This was what she had always imagined music could be, a celebration of human achievement and community. The ceremony proceeded beautifully, with Luna providing subtle musical transitions between speakers and creating an atmosphere that felt both elegant and warm. Families who had never heard of Luna before were clearly moved by her performances, and many graduates were wiping away tears as they recognized the melodies that had been part of their daily lives for years. When it came time for Rachel's student body president's speech, she approached the podium with a mixture of excitement and nervousness that went far beyond normal graduation jitters. Her prepared remarks about student achievement and campus community were sincere and well received, but everyone in her inner circle knew that the real moment was still to come. "Before I conclude," Rachel said, looking out over the sea of graduates and families, "I want to share something special about the beautiful music you've been hearing today." The amphitheater fell completely silent as thousands of people focused their attention on Rachel's words. "Our pianist today is Luna Shun, a remarkable musician who has been part of our campus community for several years. What many of you may not know is that Luna was accepted to the prestigious Harmony Conservatory, one of the finest music schools in the country. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to attend because of financial constraints." Rachel paused as murmurs of sympathy and understanding rippled through the crowd. Parents and graduates were beginning to sense that something important was about to happen. Over the past 3 weeks, our campus community has come together to change that. Students, faculty, staff, local businesses, and alumni have contributed to a scholarship fund that will allow Luna to pursue her musical education and achieve her dreams. The murmurs grew louder as people realized they were about to witness something extraordinary. Rachel gestured for Luna to join her at the podium, and Luna walked across the stage in a daze, completely unprepared for what was happening. "Luna," Rachel said, her voice strong and clear despite her emotional state, "your music has given our community years of joy, comfort, and inspiration. Today we want to give something back to you." She handed Luna the scholarship certificate and the check, both of which Luna accepted with shaking hands and tears streaming down her face. "This scholarship fund contains $22,000, raised by people whose lives you've touched with your music. It's enough to cover your entire degree at Harmony Conservatory, with our hopes that you'll continue sharing your gift with the world." The amphitheater erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever. Graduates threw their caps in the air early. Families jumped to their feet, and even some of the faculty and administrators on stage were wiping away tears. Luna stood at the podium, overwhelmed by the generosity and support of a community she had never expected to embrace her so completely. When the applause finally died down enough for her to speak, Luna's voice was barely above a whisper, but the microphone carried her words to every corner of the amphitheater. "I don't know what to say," she began, her voice breaking with emotion. "When I started playing on that street corner." The weeks following graduation felt like a whirlwind for Luna. The video of her performance and the scholarship presentation had gone viral within hours of the ceremony, shared across social media platforms by graduates, families, and news outlets around the country. What had started as a local campus story had become a national symbol of how communities could come together to support artists and right wrongs through collective action. Luna's phone, which had been mostly silent except for bill collectors and automated calls for months, was now ringing constantly with opportunities she had never imagined possible. Record labels wanted to meet with her. Concert venues were offering performance dates. Music festivals were inviting her to showcase her original compositions. The scholarship presentation video had been viewed over 2 million times, and Luna was receiving messages from people around the world who had been moved by her story. But perhaps the most meaningful call came from Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, the Dean of Admissions at Harmony Conservatory. Dr. Harrison had seen the graduation video and wanted to personally welcome Luna to the program she had dreamed of joining for so many years. "Miss Chun," Dr. Harrison said during their phone conversation, "we've been following your story with great interest. Your street performances show exactly the kind of passion and dedication we value in our students. We're honored that you've chosen to join our community, and we want to make sure your transition here is as smooth as possible." Luna could barely believe she was having this conversation. Just months ago, she had been sitting on a wobbly piano bench on a street corner, wondering if she should give up on music altogether. Now she was being personally welcomed by one of the most respected music educators in the country. The conservatory offered Luna additional support beyond what the scholarship covered, including access to practice rooms during the summer months. Before classes officially began, they also connected her with other scholarship students and arranged for her to meet with faculty members who specialized in her areas of interest. Meanwhile, back at Riverside University, the administration was dealing with the aftermath of what had become known as the Luna incident. The positive publicity from the graduation ceremony had been tremendous for the university's reputation, but it had also highlighted some serious problems with how student concerns were handled and how campus policies were enforced. Dean Richards found himself facing a formal review by the Board of Trustees. The review wasn't punitive, but it was thorough, examining not just his handling of Luna's situation, but his overall approach to student life and community relations. Board members interviewed students, faculty, and staff about their interactions with the dean's office and their perceptions of how responsive the administration was to campus community needs. The results were not favorable for Dean Richards. Students described feeling like their voices weren't heard or valued when they brought concerns to his office. Faculty members noted that his interpretation of campus policies often seemed designed to eliminate activities rather than find ways to support them. Even some administrators expressed concern that his management style was creating unnecessary conflicts with the campus community. Dr. Patricia Williams, the board chair, met with Dean Richards privately to discuss the review findings. "Richard," she said, "we need to talk about how we can better support the kind of campus community our students and faculty want to be part of. The Luna situation showed us that sometimes strict rule enforcement can conflict with our broader educational mission." The conversation led to Dean Richards being reassigned to a new position focused on regulatory compliance and administrative efficiency, areas where his attention to detail would be valuable but where he would have less direct impact on student life. The Dean of Students position was restructured to prioritize community building and student support, with a new emphasis on finding creative solutions to policy challenges rather than simply enforcing restrictions. The university also established new guidelines for campus arts programs and street performance. The new policies explicitly supported musical performances and other artistic activities as long as they didn't genuinely disrupt academic functions. A designated artist corner was created near Luna's former spot, complete with weather protection and electrical connections for amplified performances. Luna returned to University Avenue several times during the summer, playing her old piano while she prepared for conservatory. But now her status was completely different. The university had officially recognized her corner as a campus landmark, installing a small plaque that read, "Luna's Corner, celebrating the power of music to build community." Local news crews came to film her performances, and the university's social media team regularly featured her music in their promotional materials. The transformation was remarkable to witness. What had once been an informal gathering of students around a street musician had become a celebrated campus tradition that prospective students and their families specifically asked about during campus tours. The university's admissions office began including Luna's story in their materials about campus culture and community spirit. Mrs. Patterson, who had supported Luna throughout her difficult period, was thrilled to see how the situation had resolved. She continued to provide storage space for Luna's piano and had become something of a local celebrity herself as the shop owner, who had helped the famous pianist during her time of need. Her store was busier than ever, with visitors stopping by to hear stories about Luna and to buy souvenirs from the shop that had played a small but crucial role in the inspiring story. The scholarship fund continued to grow even after graduation, as the viral video brought attention from donors who wanted to support other talented musicians facing financial barriers to education. Rachel Martinez, who had graduated and started her first job at a nonprofit organization, worked with the university to establish the Luna Shun Musical Dreams Scholarship, which would provide ongoing support for students pursuing music education. Rachel's organizing work around Luna's situation had also opened doors for her own career. Several social justice organizations had reached out about job opportunities, impressed by her ability to mobilize community support and create positive change. Through strategic advocacy, she had learned that sometimes the most important victories came from understanding how systems worked and finding creative ways to use those systems to serve community needs. Luna's first semester at Harmony Conservatory exceeded all her expectations. The technical instruction was challenging and inspiring, pushing her to develop new skills and explore musical styles she had never attempted before. But what surprised her most was how much her street performance experience had prepared her for the collaborative and improvisational aspects of conservatory training. Her professors were impressed by her ability to read audiences and adapt her performances to different settings and moods. The years of playing for diverse crowds on University Avenue had taught her skills that many classically trained musicians struggled to develop. She could connect with listeners in ways that went beyond technical proficiency, creating emotional experiences that moved people. Luna's original compositions, many of them inspired by her years of observing campus life, became popular pieces in her conservatory classes. Her song Dreams on Hold, which she had played at graduation, was selected for performance by the conservatory's chamber ensemble. Other students began asking her to teach them about street performance and connecting with non-traditional audiences. During her winter break, Luna returned to Riverside University for a special concert in the main auditorium. The event was sold out, with proceeds supporting the Musical Dreams Scholarship Fund. Students, faculty, alumni, and community members packed the hall to hear Luna perform on the same campus where she had once been told she didn't belong. The concert program included classical pieces she had learned at conservatory, jazz arrangements that showcased her improvisational skills, and original compositions that told the story of her journey from street corner to concert hall. When she played Dreams on Hold as her final piece, the entire audience rose in a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever, but the most meaningful moment came after the official concert ended. Luna walked back to her old corner on University Avenue, where her weathered piano was still set up under the protective shelter the university had built. A crowd of students had gathered there, just like in the old days, and Luna sat down to play a few informal songs under the stars. As her fingers moved across the familiar keys of her street piano, Luna reflected on how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. She was still the same person who loved making music and sharing it with others. The difference was that now she had a community that supported her dreams and the skills to achieve them. The corner was no longer silent. Music filled the air once again, but now it carried the sound of dreams coming true, of communities choosing kindness over bureaucracy, and of the truth that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected places. Luna's Story had become proof that when people come together with generosity and determination, they can create miracles that change everything.